the reality of uncertainty is that, like, if you have dreams and you have goals and ambitions, um, you know, maybe they're not going to work out the way that you hoped or the way that you planned or the way you intended. But I do think that the direction they're sending you in is a good direction. Now, the
Mhm.
plan might change, things might adapt, things might evolve. But if you leave or walk away from it because someone talked you out of it, someone altered your reality about it and your belief in yourself, that I don't think that's something that you want to, I don't think that's something you really want in general. I don't think anybody does. But, you know, as we're talking about this, part of the battle is that it just doesn't work out as quickly as we want or the way we want or the way we hope or intend. And there's sadness, there's sorrow, there's anger, there's overwhelm, there's fear, there's everything that comes with it.
This is Way of the Artist with Brandon Colby Cook and Evan Schulte, identifying your blocks and demystifying your struggles so that you can claim your own path and make your life a work of art.
All right, welcome to another episode of the show. Brandon and Evan, Way of the Artist podcast. Here we are yet again doing another talk. Don't know where it's going, Evan. Don't know where for sure. So uncertain. That's what we're talking about. We're talking about grappling with the reality of uncertainty. And yeah, all I can say for myself to start this off is very, very present topic, very much in my world right now. And I think there's so much to talk about in this one, Evan. I think like everybody struggles with this to some degree, especially artists and entrepreneurs, because I think the things that give us kind of immediate gratification are generally pretty certain, and that's why we often go for immediate gratification type stuff. But those bigger things, those things that we dream of, those goals, those desires, those things that maybe feel a little bit out of our wheelhouse, our skill sets, they live in the unknown. They live in this place of uncertainty, and that can be quite scary and daunting and debilitating and overwhelming. Maybe you want to add a few more feelings, but there are a bunch of things that come up for us, yet this is such an important thing. And so anyway, I'm looking forward to getting to this one. Do you have anything you want to add for the beginning of this?
Yeah, I think that for me, in terms of, how I'm immediately struck by this, because this is something that's been present for me for, I'm sure there's a variety of reasons, but it's something that I've really been grabbed by, and even a little bit terrified by, to a certain extent, by this, what we're talking about, the reality of uncertainty. Because I think that it's one of those things where on a certain level most people can hear something like, yeah, like uncertainty, and change, it's all, and stuff like that. Things are always changing, da-da-da-da-da. It's not a new idea. It's not a new concept for most of us to kind of hear, or even if it's something that you are hearing for the first time, it's something that's fairly easy to kind of grasp on a certain level. But I guess, and maybe it's just with, getting older and experience and things like that. But when you start to really feel on a lived in level of how things are so uncertain and how something that seemed to be just so solid, it can just completely dissolve and crumble to dust in such a short period of time. And that is, it's hard to find words to describe what that, what that feeling is, and the many feelings that can come with that, including, there can be a terror around it. There can be confusion, feeling lost, all kinds of stuff. So it's really, and so I think grappling is an appropriate sort of word, active word that we've used with this, because it is something that I think that for a lot of us, we have to grapple with it. And what I'm hoping that we can maybe find or carve something out in this conversation is to maybe shift that sort of verb a little bit from a grappling to how do we live in a healthy kind of way with uncertainty, as so it's not this such a scary monster, but is something that we can I guess embrace more wholeheartedly. So that's what I've got to start this one off.
Yeah, something that comes up for me as we get into this is resistance. I'm thinking of the grappling and the resistance. And I often find for myself, if I can not be so resistant to change or to new information, that the grappling is not as challenging, it's not as hard. There's more of a flow and there's more of a natural adaptation that occurs. But the fighting for the plan, the destination, maybe even is part of the challenge that I sometimes face. And yeah, and it's like, I think with so much of this, there's a process to everything. And that's not always easy to remember when things are not going to plan. And something I've been thinking a lot about over the recent, years, but months and weeks in particular, I'd say I'm reminded of it more in these last weeks, is that have a plan, but don't be so committed to the destinations. Be more committed to the directions of the plans, not the destinations of the plans, but the directions of the plans, because the directions are good. The destinations that you think you need to get to, or you're supposed to get to, or you're meant to get to, those often change, and sometimes change quite dramatically. And like to the point where it's like, not only are you not going there, you can never go there. That is gone. And a good example of this could be in a relationship. Maybe you build a whole future with somebody and you think, hey, like, this is what our lives going to look like together. And then, all of a sudden there's a breakup or something happens. Maybe they do something that just basically ends the relationship possibility for you. Maybe it's infidelity, maybe it's something like this, whatever. But once that happens, that future is destroyed. But that future was a destination. And that's important to remember. The direction of where you wanted to head was good. The destination no longer exists, but that direction doesn't have to go out, be gone. It's just that the destination you have to let go of. And there's a lot of resistance I find for myself when, because you make plans and there's resistance because you're like, yeah, but like, I really wanted this to happen. I really wanted this to work out. I really wanted it to be this way. And when you are in the initial stage of, you're like, well, maybe it can still happen. That's where it's the hardest. The moment of acceptance, when you realize, okay, this isn't going to happen, like, this is over. That's actually more of a relief. It's in the period of, maybe it still can work, and you're fighting for something. And, something I've experienced recently is fighting for something that I just hadn't recognized was already gone. It was already dead. It was not an option anymore. And I'm not trying to be cryptic about it, but the hard part was in the not acknowledging that, this destination is not a mark on the map that I will be headed to any longer. Not that I won't be still going in the same direction I'm planning on going, but that is not a pit stop. That is not a place. That is not, and that's definitely not the Graceland that I thought I was headed towards. Yeah.
Yeah. And there was a lot in there that that we could jump off to.
What direction do you want to go?
Yeah. There's so yeah. So in terms of what you were saying, what you're saying, I think that that's one of the things that is so tough is it's like almost admitting to a certain lack of control, I think, to a certain extent. And I think that that's part of the trouble with uncertainty and how we deal with it, is because we want to have that sense of we could do something about what happened, and we want to have we want to have certain outcomes with a lot of things, especially things that we've invested a lot of time and energy, sometimes money, whatever it is. We've invested a lot into something, and when it doesn't work out, it can be hard to just admit that situation, to accept that is the situation. And I know that that's actually something that I've learned to do in challenging situations, is to actually say to myself, like, this is happening. Like, this is actually happening. Or, sometimes you don't always have the opportunity because decisions or action needs to be taken and a very quick, it has to happen now. And it's only sort of afterwards that you have to kind of go back and say, that happened. That actually happened, not denying that it happened. Like, isn't that like one of isn't that like the first stage of grief? Like the first stage of grief is denial. It's like, it's, I think it's one of the first stages in addiction recovery as well, is there's that first acknowledgement that it's like, this has happened, or this is happening. Because the sooner you can accept that thing, the sooner you are able to return to, I guess, into a creative space in order to take whatever necessary actions are required. Because if you're not accepting the thing that happened, you're not able to really, like, it's kind of a silly thing to even say you're in no position to make any sort of decisions or take any kind of actions based on the thing that's going on, because you're essentially living in a sort of a dream space. You're living
not in reality.
Yeah, you're not in reality, and so you're not equipped to actually deal with the thing. So I think that acceptance is key. And there was something else I wanted to go into with this. Something very, so it's like that, just the challenge of that acceptance, just the challenge of bringing yourself to there can be a very, very real one, because again, there can be so much that you've put into something. And something, we haven't gotten into this yet, but maybe this is the right time. But something you had said to me prior to when we recorded is there can be a sadness, a very real sorrow, sadness, anger, things that can go with that acceptance, particularly when it's something that you put so much into. Right, it can be absolutely heartbreaking to have to come to that acceptance.
Something that's coming up for me as we're talking, Evan, is, we added the word reality into this conversation, and I don't think that's by accident, because we don't all live in the same reality. We live in a perception, we live in a projection, and we live in an interpretation. And we all have different values and standards and things like this that we live by. And so reality is not always so cut and dry and so obvious across the board from every person, one to the next. Something that, I think is important to bring up is like you're grappling with the reality. The reality isn't just what everyone else thinks is happening or says is happening. It's what you perceive is happening. That's an important element to it. No, I think it's worth noting that just because you perceive it that way doesn't always mean that that's actually what's happening. But someone said to me, well, something came up and someone was talking poorly about me. And I said to them, well, I don't like that. That's not cool. I don't like that at all. And they said, oh, well, it's like husband and wife, sharing secrets or whatever. And I'm like, well, I'm thinking about that. And I'm like, well, first of all, it's not your wife. And second of all, even if you're sharing stuff because you're a couple, to speak poorly about someone behind their back, that goes against my standards. That goes against that's not okay. It's not okay. I don't care if you're talking to your best friend or you're talking to your parent or you're talking to your loved one. It actually says something about the person, in my opinion. If you talk poorly about somebody else, if you talk out of integrity, if you talk to somebody in a way in which you would not talk to them directly, you're doing something wrong. There's something wrong with that. And in my reality, and this is my interpretation, these are my standards, these are my principles, that's not okay. So this person was essentially trying to say, no, it is okay. And something that I've learned, especially through the most recent experiences I've gone through, is that don't let people tell you what is acceptable, okay, or whatever. Don't let them gaslight you into lowering your standards or lowering your possibilities. And this goes not just for when people are doing negative acts like this, it's also for, say you're an actor and you say, well, I'm going to go and be a star, whatever your thing is, right? I'm going to get an agent, I'm going to audition, I'm going to be in movies and TV and whatever. And someone goes, well, that's really hard to do. Are you sure? Blah, blah, blah. And they're doing all this to you, right? Well, look, yeah, it's hard. Yeah, it's challenging. Yeah, the odds are stacked against you. But here's the thing. That's not going to serve you to be focused on that part of the reality of the business. You need to believe in yourself. You need to decide that you will beat those odds. If you're going to do that, and if you're going to let people talk you out of the things that you care about and the things you want, that's their reality. That's not your reality. And look, it might not work. That's part of the uncertainty. But, there's a certain degree where we need to take a bet on ourselves. We need to take a risk. We need to take a chance. And, like the odds are not always good in certain things that we want to do. Sometimes the odds they really suck. But the thing is you have to believe that you can beat them if you're going to even dare to do some of this stuff, and people can talk you out of your dreams and your reality and your belief in what is possible. And, I think it's a really important part of this. The plan might be, okay, well, I'm going to go to Hollywood and I'm going to get an agent and a manager and I'm going to be in movies. And then you go there and you know what? It doesn't work out. It doesn't work out right away. But I forget his name. The guy who is in The Office. He's like a big star now.
John Krasinski.
John Krasinski.
John Krasinski. I know it's Krasinski for sure.
So he shares a great story. This is a great story. He tells his mom, he says, I'm going to go down to Los Angeles and I'm going to become an actor. And this is what I'm going to do. And his mom said, look, if you go down and do this, give yourself a certain amount of time and then you have to leave because I'll never ask you to walk away from your dreams. And he said, okay, that's fair. He's like, so I don't know. He gave himself a couple years, a few years, whatever. And it wasn't working out. He was waiting tables. He's like, this sucks. I don't think it's going to happen. Calls his mom up, says, look, I think I'm coming home. He was actually going to ask her to come get him. Like, he was like, this is too much of a struggle. And his mom said to him, just wait till the end of the year, or just wait till the end of Christmas or whatever. 2 weeks later, he booked the office, and now he is who he is. Here's the thing. You will go through struggle. This is inevitable, right? We all will go through struggle. And look, it doesn't always mean that your struggle leads to the certainty of a happy ending, but you decide when to walk away. You decide when enough is enough. And and the thing is like with all of this, the reality of uncertainty is that, like, if you have dreams and you have goals and ambitions, maybe they're not going to work out the way that you hoped, or the way that you planned, or the way you intended. But I do think that the direction they're sending you in is a good direction. Now, the plan might change, things might adapt, things might evolve. But if you leave or walk away from it because someone talked you out of it, someone altered your reality about it and your belief in yourself, that, I don't think that's something that you want to, I don't think that's something you really want in general. I don't think anybody does. But, as we're talking about this, part of the battle is that it just doesn't work out as quickly as we want, or the way we want, or the way we hope or intend. And there's sadness, there's sorrow, there's anger, there's overwhelm, there's fear, there's everything that comes with it. And I think that's so much what this conversation is about. It's like, as you're dealing with these emotions, just understand that some of this is par for the course. It's a part of your learning. It's a part of your evolving.
Yeah. And I mean, I think that there's, again, like, kind of coming to this thing of accepting the reality of certain things, because, as I love that story of John Krasinski, and you hear stories like that a lot of the times, with actors or people in the arts, or it's where it's, they were doing it and things weren't going well, and they were about to pull the plug on things. And then that's when it happens, which I do think is kind of an interesting correlation when you hear that story, because I always like to think that it's like, oh, it's because they've given up the idea of having to make it, and having to, that pressure, that weight is off of them. And that translates very often for an actor into very alive performances, because they've let go. But anyway, that's a whole other issue. In terms of that story, that I do want to acknowledge in this is that, for every John Krasinski, there's 100, 1,000, however many where it didn't go that way.
Yeah.
That break didn't happen for people, and maybe they're still in it, maybe you're still in it, maybe they're not. Because I don't want to be, and I don't say that as being like a voice of discouragement in this whole thing, but rather I think it's an invitation for trying to understand a deeper level of what you're in it for, I guess. What is the thing that's really animating you to doing something, right? Can you do it just because it's your joy to do it, right? And the thing is that sometimes that can change for people as well. You went down to Los Angeles and the intention was to, become a big actor. And I honestly think that most actors would be lying if they said they didn't want to make it. Same thing with, like, anyone in any artistic medium, where there's a big industry in it. Of course, people want to have success in what they do, because in many respects, it just allows you to do more of what is it you're doing. You don't have to divide your attention. You don't have to be doing other things and you just get to solely focus on that pursuit. So I think that we have to be honest about that too, where it's like, and there's nothing wrong with wanting to have success in what you're doing. But I think that with that, we still need to have a sense of the bigger reason why we're doing something. And again, that can change. There are people who discover in the pursuit of something. It could be in the arts, it could be in building a business, or, you know, really when you're trying to create anything bigger than yourself to a certain extent, you know, that's something that again demands a lot of time, energy, and there's no guarantees on how that thing will work out. But I like to think that all of that pursuit, that sincere, wholehearted pursuit of that thing, takes you to whatever is next for you. And maybe you do make a great career out of it for the rest of your life. Or maybe you hit a certain point where you realize that your wants, like what you genuinely want, has changed.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and you're just like, actually, this thing isn't that important to me anymore. You know, I'm just doing it because it's just what I've been doing for the last while, and it's become comfortable and it's become safe. But what I actually want is to do this now, right? And there's no shame in that. You know, there's no shame in when you come to those kinds of forks and crossroads in your life. Again, it's all, you know, it's all about really paying attention to, you know, the inner that inner direction, as you were alluding to earlier in the conversation, that direction that you're heading to, you know, inside of you.
Yeah, that inner direction. That I think that, you know, things change. You know, you brought this up, right? Things change as we evolve through our journey. And something I was thinking about today was like, man, when I was younger, and I was in kind of acting and all of that, like this whole idea of being famous and being kind of known, a household name and all of that, you know, that was very much a motivator for me. And now where I'm at in my life, I'm like, I don't want that. I don't want that at all. I'd rather be more anonymous, you know. And it's interesting because, you know, there's certain things I do where I put myself out there. And I think, you know, my relationship to being recognized and being known is so much different than it once was. And I suppose that, you know, as I've changed as a person, when I initially wanted to be known, it was because I was in search of something. I was in search of being validated, in being accepted, in being liked or loved or whatever. But as I've gotten older, I now have that without the need of fame or this type of thing. I already feel loved. I already feel liked. I already recognize myself as having lived a very interesting life and a very full life. And there's still more to go, which I find extremely exciting as well. And I find people, and I mean, I don't mean to be rude or mean or anything. I just find people to be in general kind of a hassle, because, you know, they're caught up in things that are like stupid to me, like the Kardashians and shit. You know what I mean? Like they think that's like, and look, whatever. I mean, fine. Like you care about that. Like, but to me, what I find important and what I value now is so much different. And so, like, not only does it not matter to me what once mattered to me, at least not in the same reasons, there's almost no way I could even trick myself to go back to that, because I've just lived too much. I've seen too much now. I've had a different experience than I expected. And, you know, when I think of fame now, I used to think, oh, you invite all these people into who like love you and praise you. That's how I used to see it. And now I see it as, no, you invite all these weirdos who are like narcissists and trying to take from you and whatever. And like they see you as a meal ticket and an option and an opportunity. And so I'm like, I don't want any of that. But I mean, both are true, right? It depends what you look at. But and maybe you get both, right? But when I think about when I wanted it, I was focused on the positive elements. And I think about now how much I don't really want it. And I'm more focused on maybe, let's just say, the negative elements of it. Now, I'm not saying it's one without the other and they're not true, but I think when you begin to move through life, your reasons can change, and that can change what you're doing and why you're doing it. I still love acting. Like I'd love to act on the stage, and I like doing that. But the idea of having to go to red carpet parties and shake hands with people I don't like, and have to play a game and have to have an image, and if I didn't live up to it, the whole world would like slam me for it. If I did anything that was out of the rule book of what was appropriate in that realm, to me that sucks. And I just think, no, I don't want that for myself. I'm not interested in that at all. Does it mean that I don't like acting anymore? No, not at all. I love working with actors. I love directing actors. I love coaching actors, and I actually even love acting in its own right. But it's just not the same relationship anymore. It's changed. And what I want to do with acting and how acting relates to my life now is just so much different than what it once was. And I'm not saying that my way is better or right. It's not. It's just my way. And I know that to be true about me. If somebody wants to be on red carpets and at award shows, and they want to wear the dress or the suit or do the thing and have their pictures taken, and they like that, by all means, go do that. If that's what makes you happy and that fulfills you and you have purpose and meaning in that, by all means. I'm not saying that my way is better. I just know that for me, that life doesn't appeal to me anymore. And that's a pretty big shift, because I used to think that that's what I wanted. And, and so I think what's interesting is, like, we're talking about kind of the grappling with the reality of uncertainty. When I was younger, you could not have convinced me in the slightest that I would be where I am today and think the way I think today and see the world the way I see it today. There's no way. I would have never even believed it for a second. But yet here I am, and I look at my younger self and I think, wow, like, that's where I was, and that's what I was thinking, and that's what I was doing. And you know what? My younger self got me here. So although my younger self, things didn't necessarily work out the way my younger self thought things should work out, I'm not upset at the way things worked out at all. I'm actually quite happy with the way things have worked out. And, it's just that when you get too attached to the plan, I think that it could be upsetting, because you're like, well, and I've been through that. I'm not saying that I'm not exempt from that, because there were moments where I've definitely sat with myself and said, wow, things really didn't go like we thought they would, did they? And kind of grappled with that whole idea. But after I came out with it, out the other side of kind of grappling with it, what I found was, I was like, yeah, but that's okay that it didn't go. And maybe thank goodness it didn't, because what would have become of me had it gone the way I thought it should have gone? And who might I be, and what might have come of me, and how I would have been, and that. So, you don't know. You think you know what you want, but all you know is what you know right now, and who you become in the future when you get closer to whatever it is that you think you want today. That's why it's direction. Because if I only honored what I wanted at, say, 7 years old, I would be driving around on a go-kart track every day in my backyard playing paintball with my friends. That probably would be something I'd be doing, But now,
fun.
Yeah, it sounds fun. I mean, hey, look, I'd be up for it for a weekend here and there, but I don't want to do that all the time. You know what I mean? And also, I also don't want to have to pay for that that lifestyle. That's not where I want to put my money and resources really either. So, like there's that saying, I'll say one last thing, Evan, before I pass it on to you. There was Jack Canfield wrote a book, great book, something like the 52 Laws of Success or something like that. It's a great book. I honestly recommend it to anybody, but I believe it was in this book where he talks to someone about how they wanted a boat. He says, well, do you really want a boat? Well, yeah, I want a boat. It's like, okay, how much does it cost to buy the boat, to fuel the boat, to dock the boat, to maintain the boat, do you want all that? Because that's what comes with the boat. Mm-hmm. And you start to realize, you know what, I don't want a boat. It's a lot of work and a lot of money and a lot of resources and a lot of sacrifice to have a boat. Maybe I just want to take a boat out for a weekend here or there. Mm-hmm. Maybe I don't really want to have a boat. You know what I mean? And so I think sometimes when like the boat is like a destination, sometimes you think you want this thing, but then when you really think of what it would take to have this thing you think you want, you might realize, you know what, I don't actually want it. That's not because I don't want what comes with it.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's a really important question. And it's also something that I've heard in another sort of phrasing as a means of actually helping you to kind of carry on when you're just having like a tough moment, right? Where, you're on your path pursuing, whatever it is that you're pursuing out of passion. I mean, that's what the show is really all about. We're not talking about, taking the path of just, comfort and convenience. We're talking about taking the path of real, genuine passion of what's in you. And there are many challenging moments that arise from that. And one of the, so anyhow, getting to what I was saying, another way of putting it is saying like, this is what comes with it. Like sometimes the challenges that you come up with in the pursuit of something, and you can say, this is what comes with it. This is what, and sometimes that can help in terms of being like, okay, right. This is part of this thing that I want. This comes with it. And I think that no matter what you do, that's just kind of, again, one of these, like a reality of life is that there are things that come with anything, that come with any path that have their challenges. There's no life that is challenge free. Doesn't exist. So this is, I don't know, maybe another interesting thing to explore, because it's like, with uncertainty and challenges and things like that, with these realities, if we can accept that these are realities to life and to living and being in the pursuit of something, how do we then have a new relationship with it? And there's a few things in what you were just saying that made me think of a couple of our artist laws, some of our laws. Like certainly presence, of course, is a really big one. Like it, the reality of uncertainty means presence becomes extraordinarily important. And with that, what was also becoming somewhat evident to me is also like the law of appreciation, right? The law of appreciation for what we do sometimes have within a moment, right? It's just like when things are good, we can really appreciate it. And we can appreciate the lessons that we are learning. We can appreciate, because I think with appreciation, there often comes humility, which are tremendous, I don't know, not necessarily tools, I guess, but like it's something extraordinarily powerful to have with you when you're navigating tough circumstances, or when things have taken a change have taken a change in direction that you weren't expecting, but that's also part of adventure too, and I think that some of it's just about like, how do we reframe some of this stuff within ourselves so that we don't put up so much resistance, and we can keep some perspective that actually allows us to navigate the challenges with some, I don't know, with some joy. You know what I mean? Like, I've heard it said or read it, I think it was from a Dan Millman book, where he was distinguishing between the difference between happiness and joy. And he was saying happiness is like a momentary thing, is a momentary emotion that comes and goes based on what's happening in your life in the moment. And he says joy for him is a different quality altogether. Joy is something that you bring with you wherever you go. It's a part of you that even in the hard moments, there's sort of like a burning fire of joy somewhere still down inside of you that endures through all circumstances. So I'll leave it there. Brandon, is anything that I just said provoking any thoughts from you?
Well, I mean, I like the track that you're heading us down here a little bit with the joy is something you carry with you. I personally believe that the pursuit of happiness is a mistake. Now, I don't disagree with it, but I think it's not quite interpreted the way that it is meant. I think the pursuit of joy, the pursuit of a joyful, fulfilled life that is meaningful, is what they're saying when they say, you know, you're right, you have the right to pursue happiness. And I do agree with that. But I do think that if you think it is just happiness, then you will like, here's something I've learned in life. And look, you can disagree with me if you want, but there's something I've learned that I adamantly believe. Never pursue happiness for the sake of happiness, and never pursue self-help for the sake of self-help. And those are steadfast rules that I'm steadfast about. And we live in North America, which is a culture addicted to both. Improve yourself, be happy, improve yourself, you know, all this crap, right? Look, you will improve if you commit to a goal, a task, a journey, a path, anything. You will improve inevitably. It is, if you are committed, if you are willing to go through the trials, turbulations, the challenges, you will improve. It is just a byproduct of what happens. It's not only necessary, it's often mandatory, it's vital. And so self-improvement should never be done for the sake of self-improvement, because why? All it does is pat the ego on the back. That's all it does. It does nothing for you. And if you pursue self-improvement simply for the sake of self-improvement, there is no place to get to with it. You will always find yourself in a place of not enough, always needing to do more, always incomplete. And all of those are horrible byproducts of the pursuit of a nothing, right?
Yeah.
And then happiness, the pursuit of that, because it is a temporary emotion, happiness comes from doing meaningful shit, from achieving stuff, from building solid relationships, from creating, from trying things out, from doing what you love to do, what's fun, being playful, using your imagination. That creates happiness. Buying shit to be happy, eating crap food to be happy, that is a temporary fix, and it will leave you as quickly as it comes to you. And it is a vapid, empty hole that you will never fill. And for those of you, if you're ever finding yourself in the pursuit of just happiness, the emotion, stop yourself immediately. It is the fastest way to depression. I guarantee that. This one thing that I'm very steadfast about. If you want to be happy, truly joyful, find something meaningful, commit yourself to it, dedicate yourself to it, pursue it, work at it, put energy into it. Like, if it's just a curiosity, learn about it. You will find that happiness comes from that. Build a relationship with someone, build a relationship with an animal if you need to. But happiness is a byproduct, not not the point. And here's the thing, when you have meaning and purpose, and this is one other thing I'll say about this, because I went through a depression, guys. Like, I've shared that enough on this podcast, but I went through one and I got out of it. And many people believe that once you go into a depression, you never escape it. And I disagree. And I'll tell you what happened was I found meaning. And once I found meaning, depression eventually became a memory. Now it comes up every now and then temporarily, and then it passes. I'm not saying that I never feel that feeling ever again, but you will find, if you have meaning and purpose, that there will be days where you're not happy, where you're not even feeling all that joyful. But because you have the meaning and purpose, you know that happiness and joyful are just around the corner, that they will come back. And when you're depressed, you never believe they'll come back. That's why you're depressed. You believe they're gone. And the only way you can get them is through eating some bad food or doing something that's usually not good for you. You know, playing a video game or doing something that doesn't really help you or build you or do anything, right? So, you know, I think you're bringing something up, right? Because uncertainty is going to be filled with unhappy moments because it's uncertain, right? But you almost want that, because if it was all happy, happiness would lose context, joy would lose context. Mm-hmm. You know, there needs to be moments without it so that you can appreciate having it at all. You know, and one last thing, I'll just say this quote, and I always try to remind myself of this one, which is, I think a cinematographer shared this with me at one point. They said, you know, Brandon, the brighter the light, the darker the shadow. And I always thought how true this is, you know, that the context of light is so much in that. Now with film, you know, you create fill and you fill in your shadows and you try to, you know, but the brighter the light, the darker the shadow will be created. And so you need those shadows, even if they're not seen. They exist, because if something is bright, there is the potential for a shadow. And that is just the reality of this life.
Hey everybody, this is Evan, and this episode is brought to you by my book. Yes, I recently released a book called The Actor's Awakening, Connecting Spirituality to Craft. Expand yourself as an actor and your craft through a spiritual perspective. Take a journey that will explore universal philosophies and insights to help you understand human nature in a profound way and develop practices to take your work to another level. Again, that's The Actor's Awakening, Connecting Spirituality to Craft, available on Kindle and paperback on Amazon. And as always, if you like the show, please subscribe. Yeah. There's a few things that you said once more. And I'm like, oh shit, where should I touch on? One thing I would say, I've got to bring our favorite Alan Watts back into this, because I remember a talk that he did on like the idea of self-improvement. And I think he said something like, the problem with self-improvement is that the part that needs to be improved is the part that's telling you need to improve.
Yes. It's so true. Yeah.
It's like it's a thing that will never be happy, and will again never be satisfied. I believe you said something like a vapid hole or something like that. And and it's, you know, that sort of, you know, and this is an interesting turn in this conversation. Makes me think a little bit of the movie Inside Out. You know, this whole thing where it's like, like happiness has become this like state, and understandably, but it's like, it's become this thing of like you need to be happy. And I think that that's part of this sort of, that fit has its own sort of role to play in the sort of the mental health crisis that we're currently facing. Is I think that everybody's just burned out from this whole having to be fucking happy all the time. And that you're supposed to be happy, you know, because it's just, again, it's not accepting the emotion. And
something is wrong if you're not happy.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean something's wrong.
Yeah. And that something is wrong with you.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like it's there's probably a very good reason as to why you're feeling the way that you're feeling. But again, if you're not accepting where you're feeling, then you don't have a hope at being able to say like, hey, why am I feeling like this? Like why, and and then that passes too. That's the whole thing as well, with this sort of uncertainty as well. And sometimes pleasurable things happen and sometimes unpleasurable things happen. And, they're all, they're both passing. They're both fleeting, all the time. But this is kind of getting into maybe a little bit of like a philosophic kind of, endeavor, but, it is, a wisdom that's been shared for many, many years, is that it's like that attachment to pleasure. And I'm sort of substituting the word happiness for pleasure now. Because I think that that's what so much of what we do is now about, is like the pursuit of pleasure, just trying to be in pleasure all the time. But when our mind is so focused on that, all it does is sort of in the brighter the light, the darker the shadow, is it actually just highlights and exaggerates when you're not in that state.
Mm-hmm.
When you're just when you just want it and you're attached to it so bad, when it's not happening, it's just then you're just in misery the whole time until you can. And that's where a lot of that sort of, most of us probably have met somebody like this. If you don't know somebody, you've probably met somebody who's like this, or even just seen somebody in sort of popular culture who it's just like they're just constantly seeking pleasure. It's just like it's on from this thing and to the next thing and to the next thing and to the next thing. And so I read this book, and it's escaping me what the name of the book was. It was quite good. I did really enjoy it, but it was the essence of this story was this guy was trying to understand what kind of like made people like successful. And so he embarked on this journey, and he ended up getting to do all kinds of interviews with all of these, extraordinary people and hear their stories and that kind of a thing. And one of his mentors, and I don't mean to kind of like crap on this person, but there was something that was very interesting to me about this person who was kind of helping them out a little bit and did a lot of very positive things for the author of this, and had done a lot of very, accomplished a lot of extraordinary things themselves. But there was this one part in the story where they just kind of went on this spontaneous, spur of the moment trip to London or something like that. Like, let's go to London, da 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 da. And they're at this like party, like some rooftop party in London. Like, it's kind of like, bottle service, all of this kind of shit that we kind of hold in our minds for many of us as being like the epitome of living. But in the middle of this whole thing, he looks over at his mentor, and there he is. He's on his phone, and he's booking flights to go to Barcelona or something. Like, he was like not even with this party anymore. It was just like, this is no good anymore. Like, let's go. And, don't get me wrong, there's a kind of romance and attraction to just like having that capacity and just doing it. But when in reading this story, I couldn't help but feel like, geez, here's somebody who's kind of just strikes me as being kind of unhappy, who can't sit still for 2 seconds, because to sit still for 2 seconds would mean having to confront their own stuff. Now, I could be completely wrong about this person, but that kind of behavior in this story just showed like, oh, this is just someone who is just seeking the next thing, the next hit, that next hit of pleasure, that next hit. But the problem is that even when the thing is happening, you're not even present with it to actually truly enjoy it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you're not really enjoying it. Like you're just sort of looking for more. There's always just more. So I don't know if this is how
Well, it goes
relevant
back
is
to
to this
what I was saying,
conversation,
the
but
vapid empty hole you're trying to fill, right? It is. It's once you come to a realization that this, well, it's kind of an addiction, really. This thing that you're trying to satisfy, and you realize that it's unsatisfiable, that that also what it's asking of you is not fair and not good and not helpful. Until you come to that realization, I mean, you're really in a trap. And there's the addiction to the dopamine hit, right? The addiction to the feel good feeling. It's where addicts live, right? It's where the addict of anything lives. They live in this world of, I just want to feel good. 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 I want to feel good. But the problem is that when you feel good and that becomes not good enough, and you need to feel better, soon that better doesn't feel good enough, and then better, and then better, and then better, and then nothing is enough. And not only does it not get filled, it actually destroys feel good to the point where the inevitable outcome is kind of a depression, but it's like, I would even say it's destruction and dismay. It's if you look at an addict who maybe is addicted to hard drugs, who goes from, I just do this with my friends on the weekend, blah blah blah, to we just do this, like we do this a bunch of times, but I got it under control, to now they've lost their friends, their family, they're living on the street, they're just struggling to get by. But you know what? They're like, that's okay, it doesn't matter. I'm doing what I want to do. I'm having fun. I'm liking it. And then one day you wake up and the drug isn't working the way it used to work. Your life is literally destroyed and in dismay. The idea of rebuilding it seems almost insurmountable and impossible. We look at that street person and we go, oh man, well, they really fucked up. But I look at the business person and I go, man, you really fucked up. Kids don't talk to you. You're divorced, maybe more than once. All you have is things and money. Maybe you don't even have that much of that. None of this satisfies you. You always need more. You're the same. It just looks okay to society. And who really cares what other people think of you? You know what I mean? It's almost worse. And the amount of work that it will take to correct that is almost insurmountable, right? So if you see yourself going down that road, you stop now. You stop today. And you say, look, it's very hard for a person when they're getting rewarded by society to admit that they're an addict, to admit that they're misguided, to admit that they've been misled. But the truth is, and it's one of those things that should be screamed from the mountaintops, I believe, that to truly care about another human being, you will stop them from destroying themselves when you see it happening. And they might not like you for it. They might actually hate you for it. They might slam you for it. Who are you to say that to me? I'm big business guy, blah, 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 whatever your deal is. Look, right now, the fact that I'm telling you this, if it pisses you off, there's some truth to it. There's something about it. You know what I mean? And if your relationships, if there are wreckage behind you to do whatever it is that you think you're doing, you are an addict. You are misguided. You have put your values and your intentions in the wrong place. And the inevitable outcome is dismay and destruction. And you are headed for it. And if you stop it now, you have a much better chance of really taking back this life. But if you ignore this advice, and I don't care how you look at me, I don't care what you think of me, The best friend act I can do for you is to tell you, stop now. You are headed for a bad place. You know what I mean? And this culture, unfortunately, we live in a culture, especially this Western culture, it rewards that type of addict. It actually encourages it. And you know, if you're on the end of the spectrum where you're making lots of money but you're destroying all your relationships and all of this stuff along the way, society doesn't care about you and they want you to buy shit. So they will watch you walk to destruction as long as you keep buying their stuff. And once you wake up to this and you begin to see that they are not they are not your friend. This is not here. These narratives are not helping you. They're not doing anything for you that is good. They're misleading you, misguiding you, and they're using you. Then you can stop and you can correct. And what I would say is if you're hearing this right now, you stop today and you go back to any relationship you can, if not every relationship you can. And if you cause that person pain or hurt or you damaged it, you go and you make amends with them and you try to repair it and you try to fix it, not for them, but for you. Because there will be a day where you will wake up and you will see what you did, because you will be in despair and you will understand the despair you caused on your journey to despair. And I'm not saying don't make money. I'm not saying don't be successful. Do it by all means. Go out and achieve and succeed and build. But if it's to feed this vapid, empty hole without meaning and purpose, if it's to try to get somewhere, to be somebody, to be happy, you know, just for the sake of it, because you think that's what you're supposed to do, I can tell you you're on a destructive path. The one thing is, like, drugs work the same way. It's feel good until you destroy yourself. That is the path, right? The only alternative is meaning and purpose and finding connection and finding things that actually matter, that are beyond your just internal experience. Because you will begin to find as you get older that it's not about you. But in your youth, most of us, you know, and I think this is just a product of youth, we are very much in the world of trying to just get our lives together, figure it out, maybe get a job, maybe find a career, figure out what we care about. That's all fine. That's part of a young person's life and their journey. But as you get older, you have to disband that at some point. Otherwise, it leads you to destruction, because, you know, you only get so long. You know, you only get so long to focus on yourself before yourself becomes a destructive force, you know. And look, you can disagree with me and you don't have to hear me and you don't have to believe me. And I'm speaking to our audience, Evan, because I know that you understand some of this yourself. But, like, I'll tell you, man, I'll tell you, you don't have to hear it. But maybe one day, you know, if you don't hear it today, you'll hear it tomorrow. And that's why it's worth saying, you know, that's why it's worth mentioning, because these are the things I wish someone told me when I was younger. I wish I knew this stuff. And I've watched people go through it as well as I have gone through it to some degree myself. And fortunately for me, I just am thankful that I turned around at some point and stopped going down that path, because it could have gotten so much worse, right? And I was misled and I was misguided. But, you know, I'm not saying I have it all figured out. I just know that that is not the path for me, and it's not the path for anyone I love. You know, that's all I know about it. I just know I know it's a bad path, and that's about the extent of it. Where it leads and what it can do to you, I mean, who knows? I mean, that's even scary to think about, really, honestly. Yeah, I mean, you know, we're talking about this thing, right? We're talking about grappling with the reality, you know, and the uncertainty. finding meaning and purpose is sometimes uncertain. And it's uncertain in the fact that it will not always provide happiness and joy in moments that, and when, if that's all you want, it's hard to pursue dreams and purpose and goals and things like this that are of more meaning and more service. But they ultimately always come back. You know that joy and happiness are just around the corner, even if you're going through a hard time. But when you just pursue happiness and well, let's say you're pursuing joy and thinking it's joy, but it's really just happiness, it's always fleeting. You don't know if it's coming back. It has to be in the next purchase, the next acquisition, the next success, the next milestone. And you never know if you're going to get it. And sometimes you won't. And then what will you do then? You know, because it's all dependent on a result, right? As opposed to a process and a journey.
Yeah, I think that you've the way that you've brought this back around is really, nailing it right on the head with this one, where it's like, how, like what are your best tools in grappling with, the reality of uncertainty. And, a huge, massive part of that is definitely got to do with, doing something that is of meaning, doing something that is, for lack of a better expression, that is bigger than you. That pursuit that exists on some level outside of the outcome of what it is you do, but can be acted upon from moment to moment to moment to moment, is something that is active here in the now, that has meaning to you, that gives meaning, purpose, connection to the world. Is a connection between you and the world that's authentic. I think that is the sort of the steel, that's the internal steel that moves you through the uncertainty, because on some level, it allows you to move through your life without getting too caught up in the outcomes of things, and exists a little bit outside of just trying to cash in on momentary pleasures, right? Momentary substitutes for joy, right? Cheap substitutes for joy, where, the things of doing something that has real meaning to you, that can be it can be an eternal spring of joy, for you throughout your life. And yeah, so I think you've really nailed it on the head with that, in terms of, I was getting a little bit nervous. I was just like, I feel like, we talked about a couple of things, but I'm like, are we going to actually, and maybe not, but I was like, are we going to figure out make any kind of sense on this, in terms of, how do we actually deal with uncertainty? And like so many things, it's that we talk about, it's always an inner transformation. It's an inner reflection shift, however you want to put that is absolutely essential in how you ride through the uncertainty, and how you can take the uncertainty as part of the adventure, that sort of, this is what comes with it, right? This is what comes with it. This is what comes with, to some extent, just living a life, just having a life. This is what comes with it. But in pursuing something of value and meaning to you without any expectation or outcome of something, that has things that come with it too, right? And being able to just accept those things as part of the adventure, I suppose. Yeah.
There's that saying, you reap what you sow. You make your own bed and you must sleep in it, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Something that I really I think is an important thing to kind of comment on this conversation is that the things you do today build your tomorrow. And sometimes we think that, well, if I plant these seeds today, if I do the work today, that what if the harvest doesn't grow tomorrow? And this is the part of the uncertainty thing that I think we all struggle with. And look, sometimes the storm will come and it will wipe out all the work you did. And this is a part of the problem. This is a part of the challenge we all face. And some people, they try to get smart, myself included at times in my life, and they try to, well, you know what? I just won't even bother planting the seeds. Forget it. Doesn't matter. It's all going to get wiped out anyway, so who cares? But, this is the thing. You plant the seeds not just for the harvest tomorrow, although you do it for the harvest tomorrow, but not just. You plant the seeds because it's the right thing to do for your life. And by the way, planting the seeds is not just about the seeds and the harvest. It's also about the planter planting them. It's also about the person who is a part of the process of building something. And you will build things and they will get destroyed. They will not work out. This is a part of doing anything that is great. I'm also reminded of another quote, and I mean, I could further that thought, but I'm going to leave it for now because I feel like that's something we can get into more another day. But there's a quote that I came across the other day, which was that the point is not to be great, but to be of great service. And here's the thing you need to remember. When you only build your harvest for yourself, the storm wiping it out, it becomes, well, why build it? I never got to reap the benefits of what I built. But, you don't build it just for you. You build it for everyone you love, everyone you care about, everyone you will love, everyone you'll ever meet, everything that will ever happen in your future and is yet to be. You build it for your children, for your wife, for your husband, for your grandma and your grandpa. You build it for what you're trying to make in the world. And you plant the seeds because not all the seeds get wiped out. Some of them make it. And that matters. And sometimes they all make it. But sometimes only a few make it. But you plant them because what you're building today, it matters. And it is there. And if it gets wiped out, you will learn about how to make sure it doesn't get wiped out the next time. And if you think you're going to plant every harvest and it's always going to work out and you're never going to experience a storm, you know what? Just give up. Because honestly, just give up. There's no point, right? Everything is a harvest. You want to have children, it's a harvest. You want to make a movie, it's a harvest. You want to write a script, it's a harvest. You want to have an acting career, harvest. Business, harvest. You want to have a job and get promoted, harvest, right? You plant the seeds today that build the future for tomorrow. And look, I worked a job for like a year or so, and I showed up every single day early, never missed a day, never took a personal day, did everything I possibly could. Some shit went down, I got fired. And it was totally unjust and totally unfair and whatever. And I had planted seeds. That is a storm wiping out a harvest that I was building for that, that I was not getting to reap all the benefits of. But I still reap benefits of it, I reap the benefits of building the discipline of showing up every day, the discipline of having the wherewithal of not taking a personal day, the discipline, the character to deal with a toxic environment and navigate through it. There's so many good things that came out of it. Yeah, I didn't necessarily get that other promotion that I probably deserved. In fact, I got the opposite. I got canned, and that's fine. But the thing is that you don't just give up on what you're trying to build in life, because sometimes people are going to come along and destroy it, or storms are going to come along and wipe it out. This is if you give into that bullshit, you will find yourself depressed and empty, because all of life's greatness is really based on the harvests we build today for tomorrow. All of the great things we walk into are based on what we build today. So if you just want to say, you know what, I'm not going to work out. I'm going to eat crap. I'm going to show up late to work. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this bad thing for myself, blah, 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 so on, so on, so on. You will reap that, and it will suck. And that's why I say, I said this morning earlier, it's not just the person that's eating bad food and not working out. It's also sometimes the business person that it has blind ambition that is destroying their relationship with their family. It's them as well, who's not building the harvest for tomorrow, that's too focused on the moment, too focused on the ego and what they're trying to get in that gratification. So you can have some gratification in these moments. You're allowed, and that is okay, and there's nothing wrong with that. But if it is all gratification now and no harvest tomorrow, you will reap the consequences of that. It is inevitable. This is reality. It will come for you like the reaper. It will come. It will show up at your door, and you might not like it, and it will not turn away. It will be there. You know what I mean? And it might not mean death, but in a way it will mean death, because it might mean the death of relationships. It might mean the death of things that you really truly took for granted. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. It might not mean the death of you. And then in a way that's almost worse. So, start today, stop today, whatever that means for you.
I think we should probably get close to wrapping this one up here.
I think so.
So let's take a quick chat about what we're having as a beverage here, and then we'll make some closing comments on this very very fascinating conversation that we've been having. I've been drinking, I'm pretty sure this one, because I actually got a growler fill the other day, which I haven't done for a little bit. But this is from the 101 Brewing Company and Distillery here in Gibsons, British Columbia. And this, I believe, is called their Shingle Roof, and it's a Hefeweizen. The Shingle Roof Hefeweizen, and it's a very light hef. Like sometimes a hef is like kind of cloudy and but it's actually a very, very light. Very light.
Is it more of a banana taste or an orange taste? I'm always curious.
I mean, there's a bit of both going on in there.
Okay.
But I'm going to say, in terms of your parameters in which you laid out there, it's more orange.
Okay.
More orange than banana.
I tend to like the more orangey than banana, but to each their own. So I found this new brewery in Alberta, which first of all, I have to say, I walked in there and I met them, and it was awesome. They have such a great location, super cool, and I plan to go back. This is Blindman Brewing in Alberta, and I believe they are in Lacombe. And this beer that I'm drinking today is New England Pale Ale, juicy and hazy, and it's delicious. This is a fantastic beer, and I mean, honestly, I think we'll see what happens, but my plan right now is I want to go through a bunch of their stuff and just kind of chip away and see their selection. So Normally I would go from one brewery to the next and keep switching around, but I think I'm gonna check out a few of their beers, and just kind of try it out. But this one's really good. So I highly recommend that if you're ever passing through Lacombe in Alberta, which is a really cool town, very pretty, newer development. And yeah. So that's what I'm having, Evan. I could read the story on there, but I won't bore you with that one. But they're a good brewery. So let's do final thoughts. I mean, this was good. Look, I'll say this before either of us kind of wrap this up. I think my directness on this conversation, and it's speaking quite directly to the audience out there who, look, I don't know your story. I don't know what you're going through, and I don't know what your life is, and there's no judgment. This is just a friend to a friend, honestly, friend to a friend over a beer. That's honestly and all I mean. And I only share it because these are the conversations that I would have shared with my younger self, could I have. And I project out there into the world that there is someone like me who was like me or like me now, who is going through their life and going, you know what? Thanks. I needed to hear that. That's helpful. I'm gonna, whatever. And for those of you, it doesn't resonate with you, doesn't land with you, that's fine. Look, it's no judgment, man. Do your life. I just know that for me, like some of this stuff was just misguided. I just didn't know, and now that I know, I think, I really believe in sometimes having the harder conversation with people. Conversation. I said so it's weird. Conversation with people. Having the harder conversation with people, and like I don't know you out there. Maybe I do, but for most of you, I don't. But like, I extend the human decency of love to you. And that's really what I'm saying here, because like I really do want the best for you. I don't want you to be unhappy, and I don't want you to not understand why you're unhappy, because I've been there before and I didn't know why I was unhappy. I didn't know what was wrong. I didn't know how to fix it. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know who to turn to. And so like, if this can save you even a day of that, then that's a win for me. And that is why I share this with you. So look, like life's uncertain. This is my wrap up, Evan. Life is uncertain. Embrace it. It's hard. I know. I'm going through it myself right now, but you will come through the other side. And if you have meaning, none of that stuff will be so noisy that it will stop you from being able to hear your own heartbeat and your own sense of self alive in this world. And I say heartbeat because you are here, a beating heart, alive, animated, able to do whatever you want to do with your life. And by all means, do it with meaning and do it with purpose.
Yeah, I think that, as you said, like this is a hard thing, like what we're talking about, in the reality of uncertainty is not an easy thing. In some ways, even just having this conversation about it was kind of like just grappling with this topic was definitely for me very present in this one. But what occurs to me is that uncertainty is also where the excitement is in life. Uncertainty is that unexpected, surprise, constant surprises of things that bring us all kinds of things, both positive and not so positive things into our life, but it is where the excitement is. And it seems weird that this is coming at the end of it, but in terms of what I work on with actors and in teaching actors is really teaching them to embrace uncertainty. It's like, you don't know what's going to happen next. And actually, and that when actors do really understand this deeply and embrace that whole thing as a part of them, it makes working and acting so alive and so exciting to do. But it does involve getting past a lot of hang-ups. We have a lot of hang-ups living in that way because we want to succeed. We want to do well. We want all of these outcomes, and in all of those wants, it makes everything so hard to do. It's just piling the weight onto ourselves with all of these expectations, and with creating all of these expectations, there's all of these, you're setting yourself up for disappointments, just a series of disappointments, when the fact of the matter is, I always tell my students, is just like, your partner will take you way further than you can take yourself, because to a certain extent, your partner is uncertainty. As an actor, you get up there, your partner is uncertainty staring you in the face because you don't know what they're going to do. And guess what? You're uncertainty for them too. It's like, I think that's maybe another aspect of this, which is that, like, who we are is uncertainty. We bring uncertainty with us wherever we go to others as well. And uncertainty is why comedy, is comedy. Why jokes are funny is because we don't know what the person's going to say. That's it's where that's where life is uncertainty. So we, as hard as it can be, it's so vital that we at least we endeavor to begin looking at uncertainty as a friend and as the life and the excitement that it is, and maybe take an interest in what it is trying to do and where it is trying to take us, as opposed to us always trying to impose our own ideas and our will on life. Thank you for listening in on our conversation today. We hope you found something helpful that you can carry forward with you. Head over to our website, wayoftheartist.com, for more free exclusive material and learn about the show. If you haven't already, please support us by subscribing to the show, sharing it with people you know, and keeping compassionate, creative conversation going.